Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of Gamer Disclaimer with Mag and Wade. Of course, I am Mag, and I'm joined here with co-host Wade. Wade, what is up?
Hey Mag, happy to be here.
Yep, same as last time. Well, if you haven't checked out our first episode yet, you can do that on our profile here on YouTube, which is just Gamer Disclaimer. And yeah, we're really pumped about it. We got a lot of fun ideas and topics that we're going to talk about going forward. We have a really banger show today, I think. It's going to be a lot of fun discussing the console generations and where they rank in our tier list. We were going to come up with the definitive and 100% correct tier list, according to us. So that will be a good time. So, Wade, did you do anything fun this week?
I'm trying to recall. Oh, the wife made an obnoxious number of different kinds of meats.
Okay. Do you care to
So
share?
we got like a pork shoulder and some chicken that she fajitaed and some beef. And I wouldn't call it meal prep, but now we just have a bunch of prepped things that can be splashed into other things easily. It's important to do this stuff every once in a while.
You
I
gotta
understand.
do that. So
You gotta.
yes.
And is this also what was I playing this week?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Please tell us about the games you've been playing this week.
I rolled credits on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, so I got to the end of the game. It was very fun. And I'm still exploring, like revisiting some old areas and solving some mysteries. And there's a lot of collectibles in that game, but it does a really good job of giving you, like, you can buy a map that lets you know generally where all of the collectibles are. So you can
Cool.
help find them there. So that's really nice. I also got the last achievement that I was looking to get in X Defiant, and I uninstalled it, and I will never play that game again because
R.I.P.
I don't
R.I.P.
need to.
Yep.
I dipped a toe in the water for Marvel Rivals, but I don't know if I like it yet. But I'm gonna continue to try and give it a chance. Like I hope that I'll come around on it a little bit, but we'll have to see when we see.
Cool. Sounds fun. Well, congrats on finishing what some people would say is their favorite game of the year. And finishing...
X Defiant?
Yes, X Defiant. And RIP to X Defiant. So, well, I did not play much this week. My parents were in town, and so I have not played hardly any video games the entire time they were here. We did, as a mom, dad, 7-year-old son, and wife, and myself, play five people on Power Rangers Reader's Rewind, which was very comical, watching my dad punching the air in the top corner of the map. So that was a lot of fun. As well as I started Firewatch last night while I was hanging out. Couldn't sleep, and I was just sitting in bed, and I had my Steam Deck out, and I downloaded a bunch of games. Hollow Knight I got this week as well, so I'm excited to dive into that. Metroidvania, we'll see. But yeah, so I played the first hour of Firewatch, and pretty wild. I learned that there is a genre called walking simulators, and so apparently this is a walking simulator, which I've played like Madison and a few other like horror walking simulators, but yeah, excited. I'm excited to keep playing Firewatch. But now my parents took them to the airport today, and so there's a new season of League of Legends that just came out last week. And there's a new season of Marvel Rivals that just came out last week. And so I am very excited to dive into those games and get some hours started on those. So, yes, that's what I played this week.
I need to throw in my 2 cents about walking simulators because
Okay.
I feel like the one that kind of pioneered walking simulation was What Remains of Edith Finch, which is really like all that it is walking. I don't even know if you can run in that game. Like it really dictates the pace of the story that it wants to tell you, but it's real good. Then there's also Gone Home,
Okay.
which I think you're a college kid that comes back to this house and there's nobody there, but it's your house. and you're just kind of going around from room to room and unlocking areas as you go, those kind of things. And then there's Firewatch, which is also I've played Firewatch. It's very good.
Yeah, it comes like right out the gate. Like, I'm not gonna give any spoilers because nobody gave spoilers for me, but I'm just like, well, daggone. Like, I'm making choices here, and now here I am. You know?
I don't recall everything about it. I feel like it's maybe a false choice kind of game where the decisions that you make change the dialogue that you get in that particular moment, but it's still funneling you down the same basic story. Yeah. And it's a good story, no problem with that, but
yeah, it makes sense.
It makes me feel like I probably should play it again to try and get some of the dialogue that I haven't heard before.
Well, I've heard it's a short game, so I've been into the short games lately, which you played Sheepy, and you said you liked it. Sheepy. And yep. If you saw last week, our song of the week was from Sheepy, so that's awesome. All right, well, we wanted to save a lot of time for this topic today because we have, I'm sure we'll have lots of debating and discussing about this, but we are going to make a definitive tier list of the gaming console generations and rank them based on what we think. So we're going to start with Gen 1 and go all the way to Gen 9. And so I have a visual aid for those of you that are watching on YouTube to be able to see, but we'll talk about each of these. So, yeah, I'm going to shrink us down here to this corner. And now I will share my screen here with Wade so he can see what we have going on. And we will be all set. Can you see the screen, Wade?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So, like I said, we have S, A, B, C, and D tier. And then, of course, on the bottom I have the generations and the consoles that they're most known for. And we're going to have a great time. So, let's start off with Gen 1, which would be the Magnavox Odyssey, Pong, and Coleco Telstar. I don't know any of that other than Pong. So
I mean, I have Atari 50, which is like a retrospective historical documentary of all of the beginnings of Atari, for which Pong would be included in that. They've got that great story about how they left the machine in a bar, and then they called the next day and said the machine is broken, and it wasn't broken. It was just so full of quarters that the game wouldn't trigger again. They couldn't play it anymore, so they just emptied it out and said, "All right, we fixed it. It's great." I know that the Magnavox Odyssey was kind of, I don't know, famous or infamous. Like, one of the features of it was that it had overlays that you put on your television, and that's kind of how it enhanced the gameplay of it. So it was just putting dots on there, but it might be an overlay that made it look like a soccer field or a racetrack or something like that. So they were using external things to try and add graphics to their game. I wasn't alive in 1980, so I mean, it's tough for me to say the impact that this thing had on anything. What do you got? What do you got, Mag? We don't need to place it on the tier list quite yet. If you've got discussion,
I don't have a lot of discussion. I was just gonna put it at B tier because it's the beginning.
Oh, Meg, we need to have more back and forth about where it's going to go, like a game of Pong. You can't just pick that, all right?
Here's the thing. I think that we are going to spend a lot more time debating the other ones. And so, since we don't really know a lot about it other than Pong, I mean, maybe C, because it's, not that great, but, maybe, low B out of respect. I don't know.
We can go B.
All right.
Is this a tiers within tiers situation? A tiers for fears?
Yeah, we'll rank them within the tiers, right?
Very good.
Tiers
so I think that if there's anything else in B, it probably would go above that. But yes. we'll see when we see. Yeah, I mean I feel like I had as much as I'm willing to say about the particular generation, because again, I didn't have any of these things.
Yeah, I didn't either. So, all right, let's move on to number 2. Like I said, we're going to have, I think, a lot of discussion going from 3rd all the way to 9th. So that's why I'm like, we'll speed through these first two. The Fairchild Channel F, the Atari 2600, and the Mattel Intellivision. So once again, didn't have any of these. Not really. I mean, I've heard good things. I would just put it at the same level probably as this first tier. Maybe like, I don't know. Now, granted, is this the Atari that's responsible for the video game collapse? I don't know.
There is.
Okay, well then it's going down. Okay.
Yeah, they really. I mean, we'll probably get into it later on the other ones, but like when I think of shovelware, just like things to put in a landfill, I think of like games that came out on the Nintendo Wii that just had forced motion controls and all these things. But the Atari 2600 had a lot of real dumpy games. It had a real bad version of Pac-Man on it that was not good.
Okay.
Yeah, like because it's responsible for the video game crash, I feel like we could drop it cleanly in the C tier and then just get out of here.
I'm ready to go D.
All right.
We gotta have something in the D tier, right? So, all right, we're going D.
You're a use all the tiers kind of guy, huh?
Of course. All right. I was trying to like flip between the cameras of us talking so people could see it better, but that's too much work. All right. So let's hop into the 3rd generation, which I actually just purchased a system and got 3 games for it today in the mail, which is the Sega Master System, Atari 7800, and the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. So I can start this one off. I think it's a pretty solid system. I think the Master System is criminally underrated because it did so poorly in the United States. They're still releasing games on it in Brazil. I found that out because it was a huge console in Brazil and in the United Kingdom and Europe because I just got these games from Europe. And, of course, the Nintendo Entertainment System, one of the better consoles, I would say, in terms of the older consoles. I will tell you where I think we should put it after I hear what you have to say.
Sure. So for the longest time, well into my adult life, I didn't even know that there was a Sega Master System. It was just entirely outside of the scope of my knowledge. I had no idea that that was a thing that existed. I thought that the Genesis was Sega's first console because that's the one that blew up so much. There's a bit of bleed between the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Atari 2600 in the last tier because this is just a personal story. The day that I finally convinced my grandfather to let me take his Atari 2600 to my house for the weekend was the same weekend that I bought a Nintendo Entertainment System at a garage sale. So I never had to settle for the Atari 2600 because I was Nintendo gaming from then on out, which was great. I mean, the Nintendo Entertainment System was exceptional. So many series on there that have started that are still going to this very day. It went well into that next generation. Like you can look at the lines and how they're going. Like they were still making Nintendo Entertainment System games well into the life of the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. My grandma had a Master System. I didn't know it existed either, and there's actually one before it as well. A Sega system that was like the pre-Master System.
Where is it at on the thing? If the tier list doesn't know it exists, it can't exist.
Well, like the Sega CD's not on here though too. So there's because those are technically extensions. But anyway, but I like the Master System. I'm like a lover of the Master System, and of course the Nintendo. I would say the argument against the NES is that there was a lot of garbage on there as well. I would say personally, just for the sake of tiers and things, we can always revisit. I have it at a high B tier.
I'd say it's got to be an A.
Okay, we will put it in A because it's a high B, low A for me, which we can adjust as we need.
Yep, we can shift it later as need be.
Okay. Now we move on to the 4th gen, which is the TurboGrafx 16, the Sega Genesis, the Neo Geo, SNK Neo Geo, and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. So I'll let you start this one off, Wade.
Well, you were a Genesis kid, and I was a Super Nintendo kid. I have a
Yes.
lot of fond memories with Super Nintendo. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Super Mario World, Super Mario All Stars. Like the fact that we were able to get that collection on the next system, it's just so great and glorious. Star Fox looks like melted Legos, but it was so much fun to play growing up. F-Zero was just obnoxiously fast, even though it was extremely difficult for me, at least. I've got a real soft spot for the Super Nintendo. Oh, and Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, also just a fantastic game. I could keep rattling things off, but I will pass it back over to you to say what you've got about the Super Nintendo and what you have to say about the Sega Genesis at great length, I'm sure.
Yes. So I would say honestly, the Super Nintendo is probably the system that I have the least playtime on. I have honestly probably played maybe 15 games, on the Super Nintendo. Of course, Mega Man X, one of my favorite games of all time. I know you love Mega Man X as well. And of course, for me, Sonic all was birthed on Sega, along with Gunstar Heroes, Ristar, just tons and tons of awesome games. The Power Rangers, the movie fighting game. Um, of course, there's the Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Sunset Riders. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff. And then on like Neo Geo, of course, you had like Metal Slug. Just a lot of good stuff on that console gen. So I would personally probably put it in S tier. Like I think it's good enough to be an S.
If it like this was our first instance of like the console wars where being in direct competition with each other really brought greatness out of both of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Because Sega was pushing Nintendo, and then like Nintendo was pushing Sega, and it was just awesome. And I just think the amount of really good games was just good. And of course, like the NES had 2 players, but like the controllers were awesome. Like the 4-button controller on the Super Nintendo, very influential generation. I say we confidently can put it in the S tier. What do you think?
No argument from me.
Gen 4 is my favorite number. All right. So I guess you count Sega CD 32X. Those are like half systems. So, all right. So now we move into the 5th generation, which is Sega Saturn, the Sony PlayStation, and the Nintendo 64. Which, if you didn't know this, I watched this. There's a show called Game Changers on Discovery, and they talk about different video game franchises and companies. Sega had a deal in place to have the Sony Sega PlayStation released. And I know Nintendo as well, but they actually talked about it. And the guy basically said the people from Japan were like, we don't want to help another Japanese organization or company, so we're not doing it. But Sega had the PlayStation. They're like, we don't care if we call it the Sony Sega PlayStation, the Sega Sony PlayStation. They wanted it, and then it didn't happen. And then they released the Saturn, which I have 2 games for, but I don't have a Saturn. So, but
You can read the discs with your eyeballs.
yes, but of course, PlayStation, iconic, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, fill in the blank, lots of really good games. And then N64, I think probably anybody that's within our age ranges had a 64. Like everybody basically had a 64, I feel like, for the most part. But I don't know. What do you think?
I'm conflicted right now because looking at all this stuff, and maybe it's just because I'm looking further down the road because the Sega Saturn is a big old whoop-de-doo on that thing. Like no shade, but you know there's just not a lot going on. Of your disc-based systems in that generation, the Sony PlayStation knocked the Sega Saturn's socks off. There was no contest on that front. And then the Nintendo 64. Though Super Mario 64, amazing game, like the first game that got movement in a 3D space right, and movement in general just being fun in that game. That's all you're doing in that game is just running around, jumping, hopping. It always feels good, everything you're doing. Fighting with the camera sometimes, but what are you going to do? I'm just thinking back to like the Nintendo 64 days and how limiting the cartridge-based format was for Nintendo, and how and like the PlayStation 1 in my eyes is excellent, but it's just so overshadowed by the behemoth that was the PlayStation 2 as well. And granted,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for the groundwork that it laid, it wouldn't have been able to succeed in the ways that it did. But like when I think of when PlayStation really took off, it was the PlayStation 2, even though they had great success with the PlayStation 1. And I feel like the Nintendo 64, though it had some excellent games, they were few and far between. Like there's, just a handful of memorable games for the N64. So if I'm looking at the generation as a whole and taking into account what has come before and what has come after,
Yep.
I feel like this needs to be slotted somewhere around the B tier.
Yeah, so that might be a hot take to some, but I think if you take the totality of the tier, right, you have the PS1, which was solid, but like, okay, and for me, like, I have a lot of memories of the N64. Like I like Mario Party, Mario Tennis, basically all the Mario games, Kirby 64, Super Smash Bros. A lot of good stuff was born on there. But I don't know. So I think it's obviously better than Gen 1 if we put it in B tier. Do you think that it's higher than Gen 3, the NES, the Master System, and the Atari? Like, does the goodness of the NES overcome the game or the PS1 and the N64? Because we have it in A tier. We have the NES in A tier. So I would say that the N64 and the PS1 would be ahead of that simply because there's two good consoles on it that are like equal. Like if they're like both like 7.5 out of 10s, and the NES is like a 10 out of 10, they still in total equal out to more than just because like Master System's not really counting for
you
much.
heard it here first. Mag doesn't think that the Master System is a good console.
It's not. It's really not. I mean, I have one. I just bought one, and like I can play Time Soldiers, and the Sonic games aren't actually horrible on them, but it's not. And to me, like that system's not even close to as good as the PS1 and the N64. But we have that gen in A tier.
I feel like we'll have to do some reshifting when this is all said and done, but
Okay.
I would not argue with A tier above Gen 3.
Okay, we can come back to it. Boom. All right, so I think this is where we're going to have the most fun, and these next three. Well, the next four. But I have a lot of opinions about these next ones. So we move on to Gen 6, which is the Sega Dreamcast, RIP Sega, the Sony PS2, best-selling video game console of all time. We have the Nintendo GameCube, criminally underrated, and the birth of our favorites, the Xbox, Microsoft Xbox. So, let's see. I'll let you go first because I have lots of things to say about the next one, as you do too. I'm sure.
I wish that this infographic went a little bit more into detail about how short the Dreamcast's life was, because the generation, it says it starts in 98. The Dreamcast came out in September of 1999. And then I think it was done before the 2000s, or like a little ways into the year 2000. It was just gone. Like that was it. There was
They
no
have
more.
these dates really long. Like I don't think they're still releasing games for.
I think that those dates were when the last published game was released for it.
Yeah, because they have Master System and NES in 2003. But whatever.
Yeah, right. I was gonna comment on that one before.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about it?
It is what it is. PlayStation, like I don't want to gush that much about all of these things. Like the PlayStation 2 was an entry into so many homes by virtue of being a DVD player.
Yep.
My beloved Microsoft Xbox could also play DVDs, but you needed to buy a freaking special remote for it that you had to plug in, which was nonsense.
Yep.
The Microsoft Xbox did an excellent job of introducing Xbox Live, even though it did not come out immediately when they first launched it. Everybody has a soft spot for the GameCube because it was portable even before the Switch was portable because it had a handle on it. Everybody loves the lunchbox, you know. That's just how it goes. But like the Sony PlayStation 2 it's the best selling console of all time. You've got to give credit where credit is due when it comes to that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: do you think that? So I would say like the Xbox was awesome because of Halo and a lot of like first-person shooters and sports games were great on it. PS2, pretty solid. Like I had one later because I wanted to get Kingdom Hearts and Guitar Hero. I mean, just a lot of good stuff. I had a GameCube first. I love the GameCube, but do you think that people romanticize the GameCube and think it's better than it actually is?
I think the GameCube may have been underappreciated in its time. If you look at the sales numbers, the GameCube, like the PlayStation 2 outsold the GameCube by a measure of like 100-1, probably. I don't know, some
A lot.
ludicrous metric when it comes to that. And
Yep.
the Xbox was just, snugly right in the middle between those things. But the GameCube clearly was the worst selling console. If we wanted to look at all of this, and it might be making a bold prediction about whatever Nintendo's next system is going to be, Nintendo is real good at having hits and having misses.
Yeah, big time.
Like, even the Super Nintendo, though we think that it is better than the Nintendo Entertainment System, I think that it didn't outsell it. And then the GameCube did not outsell the Nintendo 64. The Wii was just the behemoth that it was. We don't talk about the Wii U. And the Switch is now nipping right on the heels of the PlayStation 2 as far as the best-selling console of all time. So we're trepidatious about the Switch 2, which an announcement for that might be coming right around the corner.
Yes.
At this point in time, I don't think that anything else can be on the top of the heap. Like, this has to be at the front of S tier for us right now because it's the best.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The only thing that I will say, and this is conversations that I had with other people about this same topic, is that this was the generation that started with online gaming with the Xbox and Xbox Live. But I would say this to me was the pinnacle of maybe couch gaming.
Couch co-op? Yeah, sure.
Couch co-op, because now so what I'll say, the PS2 is a top tier console, but its biggest knocks is that it didn't hardly have online. It had SOCOM and one other game, and it was only 2 players unless you had a multi-tab, whereas the Xbox and the GameCube had 4, and so split screen Halo, LAN parties, Mario Party and Super Smash Bros. Melee on the couch, top tier. So I agree, but I think that not to segue too much into the next gen, which is Gen 7, but since we're there, this to me is the best. Not to have spoilers.
It's got something for everybody, Meg. That's the thing.
It is the best generation of consoles. But let me go on. Let me tell you all my thoughts, and then I want to hear what you have to say. 'Cause I have a lot. So Xbox 360, just an absolute beast, right? Took what the Xbox did and was amazing. Amazing online, Halo 3, Halo Reach, everything you could think of online, amazing. Gears of War, just friggin' amazing. PlayStation 3, Resist.
This was the first Skyrim generation as well. Don't forget about that.
First, yes. PlayStation 3.
The game they're still making to this day.
Well, Red Dead 2, Switch 2. Sorry. Anyway, PS3 had Resistance. They kind of broke into the shooter market. PS3 was I would say it's weaker than the PS2, but still a pretty solid system and consistent, working good online. And of course, the Wii. I waited months for a Wii, trying to get one every day, every Sunday at Kmart. Super innovative. A lot of junk on the Wii, but even the Wii, Mario Kart we had online, and like Wii Sports, Pinnacle, maybe we romanticized a little bit about it. But I think it's the most influential generation of gaming because online gaming really took off in this generation. But the argument on why this might not be the best is because 2 of the 3 of them had defective software. Because the PS3s were overheating and dying, and of course,
defective hardware, Meg.
The 360s had the red ring of death. And I personally had to trade in an Xbox and get it fixed. So does that hardware issue keep it from being at the top currently and in the future? That's all my stuff. All right.
Oh no. The red ring of death brought us all together. We're closer.
Did it though? Did it actually though?
Yeah.
All right. What do you think about this, Jen?
I think that what was it? As far as the PlayStation 3 is concerned, that you didn't mention Uncharted, which was just a monster hit. The Last of Us, again, game that they're still making today, just comes out on 3, 4, and 5, as many fingers as you can count. I always get a big kick out of how it couldn't be the Xbox 2 and it had to be the Xbox, so that it didn't seem like they were behind PlayStation on that front. And then Xbox just threw their console naming conventions right out the window, and it's just been a mess ever since. But
really has.
I don't think that the hardware issues that you had seen in that time still would have stopped you from enjoying what was one of the greatest console generations, without a doubt. If your Xbox 360 red rings while it was getting repaired, you could just play your Nintendo Wii.
This is true, because you had both. What about this, though? I think this was the first generation as well, with the Wii and the 360 for sure, where they had an online marketplace where you could buy games digitally. Like, I remember I had Limbo, Braid, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Castle Crashers, all these games bought online. And then the virtual console on the Wii, I had a ton of money sunk into that. And just solid. I think it's still number 1, even with its hardware shortcomings. But I think it's the top. At least the top of the S tier, and probably the best.
I won't fight you.
Okay. Boom. Man, we really had a golden age, 4, 6, and 7 here. So we transition into the 8th gen, which is the Nintendo Wii U, which I have one of those over here as well. Sony PS4, Microsoft Xbox One, and then the Nintendo Switch is technically in the 8th gen, even though it is still the best-selling unit in this gen.
Very curious about this. Like, the Wii U and the Switch both get to occupy the same gen. That seems silly, but it is what it is.
Yes. So why don't you start with 8th gen? What your thoughts are?
I had a Wii U briefly. Luckily, there are probably only a handful of Wii U games that haven't been ported onto the Switch. So you can get most of any of the good software that came out on the Wii U for the Nintendo Switch, which is a nice thing.
Yep.
The Xbox One, I like it, but my goodness, they bobbled that launch bigger than anything else. Do you remember the pre-owned game situation with the PS4 and the Xbox One?
Mm-mm.
Where they announced that you were not going to be able to lend your disc-based physical games to somebody else because the license was going to be tied to like your console, to whoever installed it first. And then the Sony people clapped back and said, like, this is how you can share games on the PlayStation 4. And they just grabbed a game and handed it to somebody else and said, here you go. And that was it.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I came to the PlayStation 4 late, but it also is just an exceptionally well-selling console, beloved. This was really so if the last generation was the one when people started their digital collections or got comfortable buying digital games, this generation was when they started building their digital libraries.
Yeah.
And Sony really, because they didn't bobble the ball like Microsoft did with those kind of things, did a much better job on that front. I mean, I have a soft spot on I have a soft spot for the Xbox One, but I can also recognize that the PlayStation 4 was just a behemoth in its own right. Just a continuation of a lot of the series that started on the PlayStation 3. The God of War reboots. That came out on the PlayStation 4 as well. Just a great game all around. What do you got, Meg?
So, Wii U had Mario Kart 8, which is hilarious because they're still pumping out stuff for that. I was an Xbox One right out the gate person. I had an Xbox One.
It's because you were an Xbox 360 person, so
Yes.
you figured that's just where you would stick, right? Like,
Yes. So I have a lot of memories. I would say this is the console that we played the most together. We played a lot of Rocket League together. Played Destiny on this. I played a lot of Overwatch on the Xbox. A lot of Fortnite, because that was my start into Fortnite as well. And so I think the online was really good on these consoles, at least two of them. I was late to the game to the PS4, but I played a lot of Fall Guys on the PS4, so I have like good memories of that. And then of course the Switch is just like, I mean, what do you do with the Switch, right? I mean, it's pretty awesome, right? Like, a part of me feels like my thoughts on the Switch are slightly disdained, just because it's been around for so long. Like, if you just took the Switch in the first like 4 to 5 years, right? You have Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild. Like, you're just getting like bangers after bangers.
That was the first year of the Switch, or
That's
maybe
what I'm
the first
saying.
two.
And so like those games just feel so far removed because it's like they came out a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like those games came out forever ago, and they're still like making like, you know, we got a Switch for Christmas, like for Harrison, and we just bought a game on it the other day, and so it's like, I don't know, like if the longevity makes it like really good to show like, hey, look at this thing. I think the idea of having a portable system that you could also hook up to your TV is pretty sweet. I would say out of all these, the Switch probably is the best. I think the PS4 objectively is probably a better system than the Xbox, but I have the most hours logged on the Xbox. And then, of course, the Wii U was just, nobody even knew what the heck it was. Like, it was like, is this an upgrade to the Wii? No, it's its own console. Oh, you want to play Smash 4? Well, you got to get a Wii U, which is what I did. I traded in my PS3 to get a Wii U to play Smash and Mario Kart. But other than that, like, I don't really do a whole lot on it. In terms of ranking this, Jan, we have 7, 6, 4 in the S tier. Would you rank this one above, like, the SNES generation 4 and Sega Genesis, or like Sega Saturn, PlayStation, N64?
I feel like our list is weighing a bit more towards the more recent. New is always better, and that's fine. We can do that. Nobody's going to stop us on that front. So yeah, I've got no problem putting it in front of the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
The Switch has Nintendo Switch Online, where you can play all of the Nintendo and Super Nintendo games that you would want to.
Yeah, so it'd be ahead of Super Nintendo, Sega. Yeah, I think it is a downturn though from like 7 and 6. But is it better than the N64 generation? I think so.
Oh yeah.
Okay, which we can adjust this. All right, so that leaves us with one left with Gen 9. And I think I have this is probably where my hottest take lies. So it's Xbox Series S, X, and PS5. I think the PS5 is a beast of a console. I think the Xbox Series S and X don't feel like much of an upgrade, and the marketing for it is absolutely abysmal. I think this is one of the worst console generations, and I'll tell you why. I think that the lack of competition has caused both of these companies to get really complacent. Like if you think about the PS3, right? We say that's like one of the best ones ever. There was like 3 Uncharted games, Last of Us, like tons of bangers coming out. PS4, there was like one Last of Us and then a bunch of remasters. And now you get to this generation and you have like God of War, you have Horizon, like the new Horizon. But like Sony is killing it with the exclusives. Microsoft, and I would say this is like the death of modern gaming this generation, because Xbox is now going to streaming and Game Pass, so they're their own thing.
Well, everything is an Xbox, Meg.
Well, exactly. Everything's an Xbox. Switch is still chilling, but it's completely its own market because of Mario, and just like back in the old days, you can't play Mario on anything else. And then like PlayStation is killing it with exclusives, but they have no competition to keep them hungry other than like Astrobot out of nowhere. But it is like, to me, like the laziest, just most disappointing generation. And then the last thing I'll say is like, we haven't talked at all about graphics with these. My friend Joel loves talking about graphics, and I say this is like the law of diminishing returns. Obviously, as graphics get better, they're not going to be as huge of leaps. But like a PS4 to a PS5 is pretty solid, but an Xbox One to an Xbox Series S is like, I mean, the X is nice, but like, and now as a person on PC, I'm like, man, this is just like, this is to me is the biggest disappointment, and because of that, I would put it pretty low. Pretty low.
Hold.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying pretty low.
Okay.
Okay.
You're giving me some previews over here.
Yes.
You brought up a number of very valid points.
Okay.
To elaborate on some of them, I'm fairly certain that there are not even, like, you can count the number of Sony-made exclusives for their platform that are only on the PlayStation 5 and are not also on the PlayStation 4 on 2 hands. I doubt that there are more than 10 of them.
Yes.
Like,
and they were impossible to get. You remember how hard it was to get a PS5? Like 3 years. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It was a little ridiculous.
Insane.
I will say that when I upgraded from my Xbox One X to my Xbox Series X, it was the least exciting new product opening that I have ever experienced in my entire life.
I believe it.
Because it does the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit better, which, I mean, as it happened, I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, everything is exactly the way that I had it before. Yay.
Yeah.
Which is nice, I suppose. But you're absolutely correct in that they've really, it's been a bit of diminishing returns where, like, you've got your big 2 players. You're gonna be playing games on either one or the other one. And I know that PC is not a console, but like, if you care about graphics, just go to PC, because there you're going to be able to get all of the highest graphical fidelity that you're looking for, as best as you can get all these. But yeah, this is not going to be as high up on the list. So this is we're breaking our cycle of new is always better and recency bias with these kinds of things. Where yes, there are some exceptional games. Are they the best games that have ever existed? I don't think so. They're very good games, but
yeah. So I have another thing to say about Gen 8 that I forgot. Not to backtrack, but once we rank this, then I can say it. I would put it ahead of Pong, but like, I don't know. Is it better than the NES? I think that the N64 PlayStation feels better. Maybe. Like, I think it's in that level. And then I think we need to do a little bit of adjusting as well.
I agree.
On the list. But let's just put it. I don't know. I would put it between 5 and 3.
Do it.
All right. So the other thing I wanted to say about Gen 8 is that it is the generation of console. So why is it so high? It is the generation of console that brought us cross-platform with Fortnite.
That's true.
Fortnite.
That is true.
I will debate it another day. I think Fortnite might be one of the most influential video games of all time, simply for that reason. But now, because of Gen 8, PlayStation and Xbox can be played together, and that never was a thing until Gen 8. All right. Here you have it. The preliminary pre. So here's what I want to do, Wade. I want to have 2 in S tier, 3 in A tier, and then the rest down.
Well, the nice thing about us ordering the gens within the tiers is that you can just spread this thing like butter on toast and get where you want it to be.
So 2 is still a D tier. Gen 1 moves down to C.
Yep.
Gen 3, the NES, I think as above 1.
Yep.
Gen 9.
Gen 9 would now be the front of your B tier.
Yep.
And then you can move Gen 4 to the front there.
And 8. So that we're saying 7's first, 360, PS3, Wii. I think we're cool with that.
Yep.
Okay, then we're saying 6 is second, PS2, GameCube, Xbox. Ahead of Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. I'm cool with that. Are you cool with that?
I've never been more cool.
Okay, so then we have 8 and then 4. So we're cool with the Super Nintendo, Sega being below the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and Wii U.
I was cool with it when they were all on S tier, Meg.
Okay. And then Gen 5. So now this is our last debate. Is Gen 5 an A or a B? Is the PlayStation and N64 actually as good as we think it is to be an A tier on the same tier level as those other ones?
Though, I feel like the PlayStation 1 and the N64 need to be on the A tier simply because the PlayStation 2 was on the S tier. Do we have a PlayStation on... What is it? Well, I mean, there's 5 of them, so they're going to be all over the place on these tiers.
We have 2 in S, 2 in A, and 1 in B.
All right, very good. Yeah, I like the PlayStation spread there. That's good.
Okay.
I prefer it to be at the tail end of A versus the highest of Bs. Because these things matter, It's really important.
They absolutely matter. All right, there you have it, everyone. This is the definitive 100% correct, according to Meg and Wade, console generation tier list. If you have any thoughts and questions, comments, concerns, or opinions, please share them in the comments below. We would love to hear what you all think. We are not the same age, but had similar games in the same time-ish. But I think I'm happy with this. I'll have to think about it after we're done and see if there's any changes I would make. But
don't let it keep you up at nights. And if it does, just play some Firewatch. You'll fall asleep.
This is true. All right. Well, cool. Well, that took a little bit longer than I thought, but I also don't care because I feel like it's good conversation. And so that's all that matters. So great. So before we leave, we have 2 reoccurring segments on our show, which we will start off with the one and only Wade's Achievement of the Week. So, Wade, what is our Achievement of the Week this week?
This is an achievement that I unlocked in January of 2020. I didn't even realize that was the case as to how long ago it was. But it's an achievement that I think about a lot because it's in the game Devil May Cry 5.
Okay.
And the name of the achievement is Well, I'll Be Damned. And it is for it says wield overwhelming power to exact an unexpected conclusion. At the start of Devil May Cry 5, you were playing as Nero, and you come up against a boss that you're supposed to lose. It's an obnoxiously difficult fight. When you lose, you get knocked down, you go to a completely different area, and you get to play the rest of the game.
Okay.
However, you can come back through chapter select and play that fight again after you've upgraded your character to end game levels.
Okay.
And you can beat that boss. And after you do, you unlock this achievement. It gives you like 3 lines of text and then the credits roll. And it's like, it's the end of the game.
Huh. So what would happen if you would beat that boss? Have you ever seen like a video of somebody beating the boss
At level 1 or whatever it is,
level
like
1?
when they went through it the first time. I've
Yes.
never sought out a video for something like that. Yeah, if you were such a god gamer that when you got to that, you took him down on your first try, because you wouldn't think to retry the boss because the game would just keep going. You know, you'd be able to just keep playing the game.
Would the end
You
credits
wouldn't even
roll?
think that you can take him down. Huh?
Like, would the end credits roll and you'd be like, well, I beat the game?
Well, only if you win that fight. If you die in that fight, it's just going to load you to the next level.
Well,
So you're
sure.
playing the game, you know. It's not like a situation where you'd be banging your head against trying to beat this boss that the game isn't even asking you to beat.
But like for speedrunning, would that be a complete finish of the game if you
Probably
beat the boss?
It's probably its own category, Meg.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. What was it called?
Well, I'll be damned. In
There you
Devil
go.
May Cry 5.
Check it out. Play Devil May Cry 5 if you haven't. I've never played any of those games, so sweet.
You can start with 5. It's so fun.
You don't need
it's
any pre-existing. Cool.
Nah, man, just start with 5. It's on all of the systems that you currently have. Might even be on PC as well.
Cool. All right. Well, cool. Well, with that, we'll move into our closing segment of this week's show, which is Meg's Song of the Week. And so, in honor of the game that I played this week with my family, and when I heard it for the first time, I thought it was a banger, we will be finishing off the show. We're not going to like lead in this time with the music because it comes in hot, but it is from Power Rangers Reader's Rewind Stage 1. So basically it's the music when you load into the first level after like the pre-level, like the first stage, and it is awesome. If you love just awesome music, you're going to like it. It's very upbeat, high energy, awesome. Wade, you have heard this song before?
Oh yeah.
Yes. What do you think about it? Is it pretty dope?
It's a go-go Power Rangers kind of tune.
Yes, which we love the Power Rangers, we being me. But with that, thank you all for watching our show. Obviously, if you like it, please give us a like and is it a follow or subscribe? Subscribe, I think it is on the YouTube.
Click all the buttons.
Click
Any
the
of
buttons,
you see.
notifications. We're going to try to release our show on Wednesdays. So, yeah, Wade, close us out.
Happy Wednesday. This was a lot of fun. Like the tier list, say something in the comments. We'll probably talk about it, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Peace.